There are at least 7 ways you can accidentally become a felon in Arizona simply by taking your firearm somewhere you shouldn't, at a time you shouldn't. Most people who violate these statutes had zero clue they were breaking any law. Arizona consistently ranks among the most firearm-friendly states in America, and that reputation breeds a hazardous sense of security. People figure that because the state honors their rights so extensively, regulations barely exist. That mindset is precisely where problems begin. By the end of our discussion today, you will understand exactly where every legal line stands, from how you transport your weapon to where you take it to who can and cannot handle a gun. Under Arizona statutes, some of what we discuss will shock even longtime carriers in this state. Let us establish the foundation, since everything else builds upon it. Arizona functions under what many call constitutional carry. This means if you are 21 years or older and legally allowed to own a handgun, the state typically permits you to transport that handgun openly or concealed without securing any permit whatsoever. No paperwork, no training course, no payment required, simply to exercise your right. That represents substantial liberty, and it explains why Arizona draws so many gun enthusiasts from across the nation. Now, although the state demands no permit, Arizona continues issuing concealed carry permits, and compelling reasons exist to obtain one. The permit opens reciprocity with other states. It offers exemption from specific federal limitations we will address momentarily, and it permits access to carry in certain areas that would normally be forbidden. So while the permit remains technically voluntary for basic carrying inside state borders, dismissing it as unimportant is an error many individuals later regret. If you belong to the 18 to 20 age bracket, regulations change significantly. You may still openly carry a handgun in Arizona, but you cannot yet access concealed carry privileges. Under most situations, limited exceptions exist for active duty military personnel who can qualify for concealed carry permits at 19. But for civilians generally, concealed handgun carry without a permit becomes available at 21, not 18. One point worth stressing: these age regulations specifically control carrying, not necessarily owning or buying firearms. Those acquisition rules exist separately and follow distinct structures. Keep that difference in mind as we proceed. Regarding rifles and shotguns, Arizona maintains simplicity. The state generally permits long gun possession without implementing restrictions common in states such as California or New York. No so-called assault weapon prohibition exists. No magazine capacity restrictions apply. If federal law allows it, Arizona typically adds no additional layers concerning long gun ownership. But here is where liberty develops boundaries, because carrying rights do not accompany you everywhere. And the quickest method people inadvertently cross legal lines in Arizona involves not what they transport, but where they transport it. Even in a state embracing permitless carry as enthusiastically as Arizona does, locations exist where bringing a firearm places you in severe legal danger. Some restrictions are obvious. Others catch people entirely unprepared. Federal properties lead the list. Post offices, federal courthouses, and any facility owned or operated by the federal government represent absolute prohibited zones. It matters not what Arizona state law declares about your carrying rights. Federal property operates under federal jurisdiction, and federal statutes ban firearms in these spaces. This confuses people more frequently than expected, particularly at post offices, where someone might enter to collect mail without considering the sidearm on their belt. State and municipal government buildings carry restrictions too, especially where security screening and weapon storage systems exist. Courthouses and courtrooms are off limits. Polling locations during elections are prohibited. Detention centers and correctional facilities are obviously banned, and certain critical infrastructure sites, including nuclear power plants and particular hydroelectric facilities, are secured as well. Schools constitute one of the most frequently misinterpreted areas of Arizona firearm law. Carrying weapons on K through 12 school grounds is generally prohibited, and violating this brings serious charges. However, a limited vehicle exception matters to numerous parents. When dropping off or collecting a child, provided the firearm remains inside the vehicle, it must be unloaded. It must stay under adult supervision, and if anyone exits the vehicle, the weapon cannot be visible and the vehicle must be secured. This enables many parents to legally manage school transportation while retaining their firearm. The weapon never exits the automobile, and the automobile stays locked. Colleges and universities function under separate frameworks rather than the identical statewide criminal statutes governing K through 12 campuses. Higher education institutions typically regulate firearms through individual campus policies. The legal terrain across college campuses varies between schools, so if you spend time at any university, reviewing their specific policies is critical. Now, let us address what may represent the single largest pitfall in all Arizona firearm law: alcohol. When entering licensed premises of bars or restaurants serving alcohol for on-site consumption, carrying firearms is generally unlawful unless two conditions are simultaneously satisfied. First, you must possess a valid Arizona concealed carry permit. Second, the business must not display the specific signage required under state law. If that sign appears, you are prohibited. Staff need not approach and request your departure. They need not provide verbal notice. The posted signage alone satisfies legal requirements. Passing it while armed constitutes a violation, and claiming you failed to notice it rarely succeeds as a defense. Airports introduce another complication. The actual restriction triggers at the security checkpoint and within the secured area beyond. Firearms absolutely cannot pass through TSA screening. When flying with firearms, federal regulations mandate they be unloaded, secured within hard-sided locked containers, and checked with airlines at ticket counters. However, non-secure public airport areas, curbside zones, parking structures, and ticketing lobbies before security. These generally follow standard Arizona carry regulations. Private property involves slightly different enforcement. Business owners and homeowners in Arizona possess rights to ban firearms on their premises outside the specific liquor establishment signage rule. Most no firearms signs at private businesses are enforced through trespass statutes rather than standalone firearm charges. Practically speaking, this means the sign alone might not create criminal liability. But if property owners or their representatives request your departure and you refuse, that refusal becomes a trespassing charge. The intelligent approach is straightforward. Respect property owners' wishes or conduct your business elsewhere. And there remains one additional location category that surprises people: tribal land. Tribal nations within Arizona constitute sovereign governments. Arizona state carry laws do not automatically extend onto tribal territories. Many tribes restrict or completely prohibit firearms without specific authorization. Crossing from state land onto reservations without understanding tribal regulations creates problems that Arizona carry rights cannot shield you from. Arizona's vehicle regulations rank among the nation's most permissive, yet details still matter, particularly where federal law intersects with state law. The Federal Gun-Free School Zones Act establishes a 1,000-foot buffer around every K through 12 school nationally. Within that zone, firearm possession can become a federal matter. Arizona concealed carry permit holders receive exemption from this restriction. Without a permit, firearms generally must be unloaded and locked inside containers to avoid potential violations. This represents one of the strongest practical arguments for obtaining an Arizona concealed carry permit. Even though the state requires none for basic carrying, that federal school zone exemption alone justifies securing the permit. Beyond those school zones, Arizona law remains remarkably accommodating for vehicle carry. If you are 21 or older, you may store handguns essentially anywhere in the vehicle. Concealed, visible, loaded, unloaded, in glove compartments, center consoles, holsters mounted to dashboards. The state demands no separation between firearms and ammunition, mandates no locked containers, and imposes no placement restrictions. If you may legally possess the firearm, Arizona generally permits storage wherever suits you. For those under 21, handguns cannot simply be tossed loosely and concealed somewhere in vehicles. They must either be clearly visible or stored inside cases, holsters, packs, luggage pieces, or defined storage compartments like glove boxes or center consoles. During traffic stops, Arizona imposes no duty to inform. You face no legal obligation to voluntarily inform officers about firearms in your vehicle or on your person. However, if officers inquire directly, honesty represents both the legal legal mandate and the wise choice. Officers may temporarily secure firearms for contact duration, for safety purposes, and cooperating calmly through this process always remains the correct decision. This section matters more than any other, because if you fall within these categories, everything discussed becomes irrelevant. The carry rules, vehicle rules, location restrictions, none apply, because you cannot legally handle firearms in the first place. Arizona and federal law both define categories of individuals prohibited from firearm possession. The most widely recognized category includes anyone with felony convictions whose rights remain unrestored, but the list extends considerably further. It encompasses individuals convicted of domestic violence offenses, including certain misdemeanor domestic violence convictions, not merely felonies. It includes persons subject to specific protective orders or court orders. It covers fugitives from justice, unlawful controlled substance users, individuals involuntarily committed for mental health treatment or adjudicated mentally defective, anyone receiving dishonorable military discharges, and individuals unlawfully present in the country. And here is the category that quietly traps more people than almost any other. Certain juvenile felony adjudications can still block firearm possession years, even decades into adulthood. Many people overlook this entirely because common assumption suggests juvenile records vanish at 18. Frequently, records themselves may be sealed, but the legal disability created does not automatically disappear. And because Arizona embraces permitless carry, no application process exists to flag this issue. People simply assume reaching legal age means clearance, and that assumption can prove dangerously mistaken. Should any doubt exist regarding your eligibility, obtaining definitive legal guidance before ever handling firearms is not merely advisable, it represents the only responsible path. For anyone discovering they are currently prohibited, focus should shift toward understanding whether and how rights may be restored. For those legally eligible, purchasing firearms in Arizona remains relatively streamlined. Dealer sales proceed through the federal background check system. In some instances, presenting valid Arizona concealed carry permits may substitute for standard background checks, though individual dealers retain discretion to conduct checks regardless. Federal law establishes age thresholds for dealer purchases: 18 for rifles or shotguns from licensed dealers, 21 for handguns from licensed dealers. Background checks return one of three results: proceed, delay, or deny. If results indicate delay, federal law permits dealers to complete transfers after 3 business days pass without denials being issued. For purchasers under 21, that waiting window may extend to 10 business days. Once checks clear, no state-mandated waiting period exists. You may complete purchases and depart with firearms the same day. Private sales between individuals in Arizona require no background checks, permits, or registration forms. Sellers cannot knowingly transfer firearms to prohibited persons. That responsibility rests entirely with sellers. Many private sellers choose to verify buyer identification and create simple bills of sale documenting transactions. None of this is legally mandated, but it is strongly recommended. Such documentation establishes clear records that firearms left your possession on specific dates to specific individuals, which matters enormously should those firearms ever surface in criminal investigations. Since Arizona maintains no firearm registration system tracking ownership, that personal record may represent the only proof the weapon no longer belongs to you. One area where federal law applies with full force involves straw purchases. Buying firearms on behalf of prohibited persons constitutes a federal felony, prosecuted aggressively. Persons completing federal forms are asked directly whether they are the actual firearm buyers. Answering dishonestly on these forms constitutes separate federal crimes. This is not an area where good intentions or family loyalty offer any legal protection. Arizona grants residents extraordinary freedom concerning firearms, and that freedom carries responsibility to understand exactly where boundaries lie. The laws remain generally straightforward, but details matter, and the overlap between state law, federal law, and sovereign tribal jurisdiction creates layers that casual assumptions cannot safely navigate. Whether you carry daily or are just beginning, knowing these rules is not optional. It forms the foundation everything else builds upon. That's it for today, folks. See you in the next video.